let's talk about my favorite character, David. Now in the original script, and Spates is quoted as saying, David is a bit more bloody-handed. He infects Shaw with a facehugger on purpose. He's boastful of how he can see better than humans, and he's faster and stronger and smarter. His contempt for humanity is palpable. It's even his idea to wake up the last engineer. He wakes the guy up because he's like, yeah, I just want to see what's going on here. It wasn't on Wayland's orders or anything. He was just inciting all this craziness because he's a crazy evil android. I like that David's character is far more subtle in Prometheus, and because David's character is far more subtle, it kind of makes him more human in a way. Like, none of us are all good or all bad, we all have kind of a little bit of both, and so does David. And to be honest, in my opinion, I think David is the most interesting part of Prometheus, by far. He's like the only character that's developed, which is kind of odd, being that he is the only non-human on board, but whatever. If I was hanging out with David, first of all, he's fine, so I'd be like, hey, what's going on? Are you fully functional?
From you, Data, you are fully functional, aren't you?
Of course, but...
How fully?
In every way, of course. I am programmed in multiple techniques.
If I was on board with David, I would like totally want to be friends with him. I'd be like, oh my god, what's your favorite movie, Lawrence of Arabia? Why? That's so weird. Let's talk about it. Let's watch it. I mean, David's always asking all these other people questions about why they're doing certain things, but nobody ever asked David anything. I feel bad for him.
I understand human emotions, although I do not feel them myself.
So the thing about David that's fascinating to me is that he's like the most advanced robot made by Wayland Industries to date. He's so advanced that he understands human emotions and like can simulate them in a social setting so he can like flawlessly fit in with humans. Now, even though he claims to not feel them himself, you are what you pretend to be, okay? So at what point, if you just simulate emotions all the time, you're pretending to be a human all the time so you can fit in, at what point do these simulations become more than just simulations?
For that would require the one thing that David will never have. A soul.
You see all these people constantly telling him that you don't have a soul, you're not a real boy, and you can tell that he has his feelings hurt by it. And the fact that he likes a movie and like quotes it and even bleaches his roots to look more like Lawrence of Arabia, I'm sorry, but if you like movies, you have a soul, in my opinion. And I don't know why everyone's a dick to David all the time anyways.
How are your lessons going, David? I almost forgot you're not a real boy, huh?
What Prometheus made me consider was that, could a robot have a soul? This is something that we're gonna have to deal with at some point.
Commander, would you enlighten us? What is required for sentience?
Intelligence, self-awareness, consciousness.
Prove to the court that I am sentient.
This is absurd.
And what's to say that they don't have a soul? Who's to say who has a soul and who doesn't? I mean, Shintoism proposes the idea that everything has souls. Radishes, rocks, the earth, even machines. Machines are included. I mean, it's not like a soul can really be quantified. It's not like I can point somewhere and say, this is where my soul is. It's kind of an imaginary thing anyways, so who's to say that a robot couldn't have a soul?
Now tell me, Commander, what is Data?
I don't understand.
What is he? A machine. Is he? Are you sure?
Yes.
You see, he's met 2 of your 3 criteria for sentience, so what if he meets the 3rd? Consciousness in even the smallest degree. What is he then? I don't know. Do you?
Do you?
It seems to me that the entire movie, David's trying to hide the fact that he's more human than anyone realizes. I like the fact that he doesn't overtly hate humans. He's just kind of bummed out by them. He's smarter than everyone, and yet everyone like treats him like he's like a lesser person.
Making you guys pretty close, huh?
Not too close, I hope.
If I was hanging out with David, I'd be like, holy crap, you can do all this fucking math stuff in your brain and then do 10 other things at the same time and see different light spectrums. That's amazing. I would totally give him high fives over it. I'd be like, that's crazy, and give him his comeuppance. But nobody ever does. Everybody's just like, oh, whatever, he's just an android. Whatever, he's just an android. And that's why he's like, screw you guys. Like, come on, really? Like, I'm way cooler than that. Nobody gives him props, and that's why he doesn't like humans.
We've all been dancing around the basic issue. Does Data have a soul? I don't know that he has. I don't know that I have. But I have got to give him the freedom to explore that question himself.
And you can do a whole video on this all by itself, okay? You can do a whole video on this all by itself. So let's just move on. I'm glad that they changed David. He's really interesting. And if they do another movie, I would definitely like to see more of him.
So, you kind of have a thing for robots, don't you?
I kind of have a thing for Michael Fassbender.
No, it's robots.
Well, mate, well, sure.
Okay.
They look like Michael Fassbender.
Oh.
Now let's take a moment to talk about the ending of Prometheus and the whole concept of going to paradise, the engineer homeworld. This ending was not in the original script, and I'm really excited to see the engineer homeworld if they ever make a sequel. The idea of going to the engineer's planet is difficult because, I mean, what do these engineers do in their spare time? I mean, they have to have like a mundane everyday existence. It's not like every day they're going around drinking black goo and making a planet and seeding it with life or anything like that. I mean, do they go shopping on the weekends? Do they have engineer women and engineer babies? And do they go to their engineer malls? I have no idea what they're gonna do for this homeworld, and I'm really intrigued to see it. I also can't wait to see what the hell the engineers think of Shaw landing on their planet. She's gonna be all like, yeah, who's the space alien now, motherfucker? How do you like it? Like, what do they do all day? Do they have desk jobs? Let's talk about the whole Lindelof mystery deal. Was there too much? Maybe. In the original Spade script, there is like no mystery. Everything's spelled out for you. It's very literal. It's very traditional. All the characters are telling you what's going on. There is no mystery. I like the mystery. I think that's a great element to add. This story structure is really a great vehicle to support all sorts of mystery. And they did a really good job exploiting that, but they went a little too far with it, which is unfortunate. Side note on Space Jesus. Now, originally, we cited an article written by Cavalorn. This notion was debated wildly on the internet. Well, screw you guys, because in the original Space script, Space Jesus is totally recognized and gets his due. But I guess we know why they never came back to us. Something killed them off, back around the time of Christ. Maybe he was one of them, a great teacher sent from heaven, Jesus, the last engineer. And who knows, maybe Space Jesus will come up again in Prometheus 2, The Reckoning. In conclusion, the thing that I like the most about the Spade script is the development of the characters. Their intentions are made clear, I understand them, I have more of a connection with them, which I like better. You know, I can't get behind a story if I don't care about any of the characters. That was done really well. And I think the average viewer probably would have liked this movie better as well, because it's a very traditional sci-fi action horror movie. It's very much an Alien prequel. But it might not have been as memorable overall, I guess, in the scheme of things. We may have forgotten about it by now if it had just been the Spade script. But then again, we all know that the final version was so full of these weird blunders that maybe the Spade script would have been better. I don't know. I guess we'll never know. So my final thought on why they decided to ditch the Spade script, even though they were like ready to film it, they were getting ready to shoot this script, is because the source material from Chariots of the Gods and the Ancient Astronaut theory is far more interesting than just making an Aliens prequel out of it. And I think that's why they ended up changing it so much and having Lindelof do a rewrite. It's because Ridley Scott really just wanted to do an Ancient Aliens movie. And while we're on the subject of Ancient Aliens, I want to tell you about another Star Trek Next Generation episode that shares a theme with Prometheus called Who Watches the Watchers?
What is that? What is it?
I don't know.
So in the episode, this planet of like proto-Vulcan humanoids who are like in the Bronze Age stage of development are secretly being studied by Federation people. So one day, one of the Mintakans discovers their hideout, he sees people being beamed away and transported, and he's like, holy shit, and he actually gets electrocuted, and so they beam him up to the ship, and he sees Picard, and he's like, oh, the Picard, and like thinks that Picard is a god, and like he gets sent back down to his planet.
I awoke in an incredible place, and my wounds We're gone.
I was sure you were dead.
I think I was. But I was brought back to life.
And he's like, I've seen the Overseer. Oh my gosh, this God that we used to talk about and our ancestors, told us about that we've kind of ditched nowadays. He's real and his name is the Picard and he saved me. So the Mintakans all jump on board with this guy on this religion of the Overseer. So Picard realizes that they've accidentally inspired a religion among these people, and that's not something that they want to do. They want them to progress past superstition and things like that.
You were speaking the truth.
The Picard will be pleased.
And he's so bummed, and he's like, what can we do to stop this? We have got to reverse this. So this one guy who's been studying the Mintakans tells Picard that these people are too primitive to understand that it's just science and not magic, and that Picard should go down there and just give him some commandments and tell him to do some good stuff.
Are you suggesting
You must go down to Mintaka 3.
Masquerading as a god?
And Picard is absolutely not. I am not going to plunge these people back into the Dark Ages. It violates the Prime Directive of the Federation. And no, I gotta figure this out. So the whole thing culminates with Picard bringing this Mintakan leader aboard the Enterprise to try to explain to her that he's not a god.
Get up. You must not kneel to me.
You do not wish it?
I do not deserve it. I'm not a supreme being. I'm flesh and blood, like you.
Not like me.
Like you.
And that he's just a man, and that his race and his technology is just further along than hers is. And she still has a really hard time grasping this and understanding it.
That is my home?
Seen from far, far above.
Yet we do not fall. Your powers are truly boundless.
The whole thing is pretty interesting because it directly parallels Eric von Daniken's theory that highly advanced extraterrestrials visited ancient man and ended up inspiring all these ancient religions. Can I say something about how shitty this packaging is? This is taped together on the spine. That's what's holding all these together. It's just tape. And it barely fits back in here. See, I can't even get it back in here right now. Oh, that noise. I'm really surprised that Chariots of the Gods isn't taking this opportunity to repackage their books and say, this is the book that inspired Prometheus. They should totally do that. They're doing that with Lincoln. They did that with Lincoln. These Lincoln books saying oh, these books inspired Lincoln. Yeah, I wish I knew less about Prometheus, not more. I don't want to just theorize on anything else. I really hope they don't make a sequel. I'll tell you that right now.